the smoke from Canadian wildfires is not only creating visibility issues, also making it tough for some people to breathe. So just how unhealthy is that air? Joining us right now is Assistant Professor of Surgery at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, Dr. Susannah Hills. Dr. Hills, nice to have you with us. So how bad is it out there for us?
It's terrible, right? You can almost look at the sun because there's so much smog out there. And the problem is that all of these particles are causing a lot of airway irritation. So
who's really at risk? I mean, because, you know, we were both out. Last night my eyes were feeling a little irritated, but I wasn't dying, you know what I mean?
Right. So there are really three groups of people who are most at risk: young kids, the elderly, and then those who are already at risk from heart and lung disease.
Can you kind of liken it to anything like smoking a pack of cigarettes today? Like, what is this the equivalent to of the pollution in the air right now?
Yeah, exactly. It's like any smoke pollution, being in a city with a ton of smog, any environment where you have a lot of particles in the air, those little particles are going to rub against the airway, almost like sandpaper on skin, and cause inflammation.
What can we do to protect ourselves then? Because I've seen some mixed opinions on certain kind of masks to wear. I mean, we've all heard the stories about the mask didn't work for COVID, but will it work for these particles?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it will work for these particles. If you're at risk when you go outdoors, then absolutely consider wearing a mask. The New York Department of Environmental Conservation has issued a health warning. They're suggesting, the Department of Health is suggesting staying indoors if you can. No heavy physical exercise outdoors right now in these conditions. And the other thing, I urge all people taking lung medications like asthma inhalers, steroids, or heart medications, now is not the time to skip those medications. And keep your rescue inhaler with you if you have asthma or lung disease.
So you specialize in airway and pulmonary conditions. Are there warning signs that we should know that, like, you know, breathing in this air is not good for us right now and we need help?
Yes, certainly if you're feeling short of breath more than usual without heavy exertion, that's concerning. If you feel like you're wheezing, if you feel like you can't get air, that's concerning. And then if you're feeling extra fatigue beyond what you'd expect for the kind of activity that you're doing, that's also a little bit of a red flag. So call your doctor if any of those things are starting to happen.
So doctor, you know, yesterday I walked, I got my steps in during the day, and it wasn't until later on in the day. I mean, so the morning hours, do we have to be concerned? When are you hearing it's going to get worse for us today?
So it seems like this evening they're expecting conditions to worsen just because we're continuing to get more and more smog from up north. So I would say for the next few days at least, have a lot of caution with being outside.
In caution, do you saying that everyone needs to wear a mask, or just certain people need to wear a mask?
I don't even want to talk about masks,
like,
but fine. I literally threw away 4 yesterday.
Trust me, I don't have any left over. But I'm just saying, like, do we need a specific kind? Does everyone need to wear it? Like, are we at that point where you're saying put a mask on, or
the best masks are the N95 masks for particles. Those who have COPD, severe lung conditions. My father's 92 years old and has lung issues. You know, I would like him to be cautious. So if you have a precondition or if you're at risk for having issues, you get severe asthma attacks, then consider it.
But if you're pretty healthy,
you're fine.
Yeah, if you're pretty healthy, I would say avoid physical exertion when you're outside.
Right.
That's really the recommendation we're giving right now.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Well, we have this periodically. Several years ago, we had similar smog conditions from wildfires up north. So, you know, it happens periodically, but this is severe.
Did you see any, like, really intense negative effects from when we had this before, where people were like, did it send anyone to the hospital? Are we talking anything like that?
When these conditions happen, people with bad asthma absolutely get flare-ups, and they end up having to come into the emergency room for steroids, for nebulizers, for help.
Long-term effects.
Long-term effects. So I think, you know, if this goes on for a few days, which we expect it to, the long-term effects are pretty minimal. But these conditions repeated over time, over weeks, months, yeah, it can cause the same conditions as any other irritant or pollutant, like air. You know, living in a city with a ton of smog has long-term effects.
Yeah, this is not Beijing, right?
Yes.
Okay, because Beijing, you can't, right?
I know.
I mean, that's a mess.
That's true.
We're not the worst for environmental conditions.
Okay.
Dr. Susannah Hills, how can people find you?
Yes, I'm at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, So yes, but certainly in these conditions, if you're needing help immediately, go to your emergency room or call your doctor.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you
so
so
much, Dr.
Thank
Hills.
you.